Hello everyone and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today we are joined by Rabbi Moshe Don Kestenbaum, author of the newly released Olam Ha'avodah. Thank you, Rabbi Kestenbaum, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have read your Svarim, both in Hebrew and in English, and now the newly released Olam Ha'avodah, which has been translated into English. Let's start there. How did you get into the field of writing Svarim? And then we'll hear about some of your history and also your foray into the world of Chinuch.
So, my first sefer, which is the most popular of my Svarim, is Olam Hamiddos. And what I think is nice about Olam Hamiddos is when I started writing it, I did not intend to write it. For many years, I was in Waterbury and I was teaching in the Beis Medrash, Musar. Then I eventually went to the high school, and I gave Vadim in Orchos Tzadikim. And one of the Yungalite, Shia Lazenga, who's now a Rav in Texas, I believe Houston, he asked me if I would give a weekly Vad to the married, to the Kollel. So this was unique, because usually I was just learning Orchos Tzadikim and then kind of going off on a tangent. But here I had to prepare a weekly shmooze, which I'd never done before. So I started preparing it, and I started writing to prepare. And all of a sudden I realized that I had a lot to write, a lot of material. And I wrote well past I ever gave to those in those Vadim, and it turned out to be a sefer, which is to me obviously special, because it wasn't like, I want to write a sefer, I need to fill up pages, I want to write about jealousy, let me just see what I can come up with. I was writing chazal and ideas that I myself had used in my own Avodas Hashem.
And that was published initially in Lashon Kodesh?
Published in Lashon Kodesh about almost 15 years ago.
Wow. And later released in ArtScroll, by ArtScroll in English?
2 years ago, Baruch Hashem.
Very well received.
Baruch Hashem.
And what was your next sefer after that?
Next sefer was in English. I think I switched off. I wrote an English sefer called Run After the Right Kavod.
Mm-hmm.
Kavod is my favorite topic. I think that's what people need, and that's what young people need, that's what old people need. They need to feel good, feel respected. So I took a certain amount of that, I think, from articles that I read that you may have helped edit. And so that was the next sefer. I didn't get ArtScroll on that one. Maybe one day they'll redo it. But, and then I wrote Olam Ha'avodah. Olam Ha'avodah is about 5 years after Olam Hamiddos, 5-6 years. So in between I wrote Sefer Run After the Right Kavod. Well received, not as well known, but those that I've learned at Baruch Hashem, I get a lot of good feedback.
And now the new volume of Olam Ha'avodah in English is divided into 40 different sections, right?
Yes, we're giving the option of reading it in 40 days.
And what was the thought process with that?
Wasn't my idea. It was Mrs. Heimwitz, my editor's idea.
Okay.
But she thought, I think it was her idea, or someone in ArtScroll thought it would be good for people to have a way to learn it by the day, but it doesn't have to be learned that way.
Mm-hmm.
So this way, happens to be, wasn't originally even going to come out for Elul, because these are topics that we need to work on all year.
Mm-hmm.
Torah, Tefillah, Midos, everything. But happens to be, Hashgacha has it that we got delayed and coming out Elul, so it works out well, 40 days, to Yom Kippur from Rosh Chodesh Elul.
Now, I was fascinated to learn that you actually grew up, you were born and raised in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
I was born in Canada. I moved to Wilkes-Barre when I was about 5.
The only thing I know about Wilkes-Barre are the Wilkes-Barre Barons.
They weren't there when I was there, so I didn't get to have that. And I moved to Far Rockaway when I was right before my bar mitzvah. Okay,
so you grew up, many of your formative years were spent in Far Rockaway. Where did you attend yeshiva, and who were the influential figures in your life at that time?
So my primary Rebbe, certainly when we talk about Musar, is Rabbi Chiel Per, the Rosh Yeshiva Far Rockaway. He really got me into Musar, which we'll explain a little bit what Musar means. People have a misunderstanding of Musar. People think Musar is, you're going to go to Gehenna if you don't do this. People think of Musar as very intense and very, maybe even discouraging for some people. And hopefully we're trying to change that attitude. My Rebbe, when he taught Musar, we loved it. It was fun. He would make jokes. And to me, Musar is, certainly when you talk about Midos, it's about understanding yourself. You could even laugh at yourself. You're taking yourself so seriously. You know, the other day I got a phone call from somebody, and he's like, "Hi," you know, I didn't know the person, and he's like, "Hi Moshe, how you doing?" And I'm like, I was like a little bit like, "Oh, Moshe, like people don't call me that anymore. Usually people call me with a title." Then I laugh at myself, like, "What are you taking yourself so seriously? You're Moshe. That's how you grew up." I got the done added on in high school. One of my Rabbeim, Rabbi Kalish, Rabbi Shua Kalish, made that popular. But don't take yourself so seriously. So it's amazing. It's amazing to learn about yourself. And
now, when Rabbi Per was teaching you and your fellow Chaverim Musar in Yeshiva Far Rockaway, what text was he using as a basis for those?
Mainly he was using Madregas Adam. And those were my favorites, some of the pieces in Madregas Adam. But to be honest, I didn't pay so much attention when he was reading the Madregas Adam. I paid much more attention when he stopped reading and started talking. And he has a lot to share.
And what was the primary message at the time that resonated with you?
I don't know if I thought of it so much about a primary message, but I think the lesson that I learned and what brought me to where I could write Olam Hamiddos is he taught us to really be aware of our thoughts and what we're thinking and what we're feeling, and how often there's jealousy, there's anger, but so many people, unfortunately, are unaware of their own feelings, their own thoughts, and that's dangerous. People are upset at somebody else, and they think, "Oh, that person did this to me," and they're not seeing their own shortcomings that are involved, their anger, the bad middos. If people would just see with clarity what's going on, everything would change. And their lives would be a lot better. You have a better marriage. You're better with your kids.
So is it just about seeing with clarity? Is that kind of a summary of the way you're viewing your Musar that you're imparting?
I think with Olam Hamiddos, not with Olam Ha'avodah, Olam Hamiddos is, to me, in the shortest terms, self-awareness, and then being ready to tackle it. But if you're not aware, there's nothing to tackle. There are people that are always right. There are people that are perfect. You're aware of your shortcomings, and it's okay. It's okay to have shortcomings, and then you're prepared to work on it. And what happened with me, Baruch Hashem, is now when I got jealous, I actually thought about it, and I tried to work with it. I'll give you a story that changed my life that I told Bachram recently, that I had a friend of mine that was very intense, and he would daven long Shemona Esreis, and it was hard for me because I felt like of 2 cents, because he's a big tzaddik, and davening is crazy Shemona Esreis, and I just davened, long Shemona Esrei. Not too short. You always make sure that after the Shliach Tzibur starts, before Kedusha, you never start before the Shliach Tzibur, Chas Hashem. But he would daven these intense Shemona Esreis, and one time I finished Shemona Esrei, and I used to not be able to look at him because it was so hard to just see him. And somehow I got inspiration in my head that I turned to him. He was to my right, and I turned to him, and I said, "It's beautiful the way he davens. I could be inspired from that. I could learn from that." And that changed my life. Because now, when I see people that are doing things that maybe make me feel a little bit less, I change it and say, instead of making a competition, just accept, appreciate.
Having an ayin tova.
Not even ayin tova. I had the good eye before. I saw the good. But not, I'm bad because of it. It's beautiful what he's doing. As a bystander, let me be a bystander. Forget about Moshe Don. Forget about my own problem, my shortcomings in my daven. Step out. Look at the way he davens. Step out. Look at the way he learns. So much of people's are hurt by jealousy, and then sometimes you put
Would
the guy
you say
down.
that a lot of people nowadays can't forgive someone else's success, both spiritually and materially?
Yeah, because of jealousy. But if I stepped out for 1 minute, it changed my life.
Now, you mentioned before that your favorite topic is kavod.
Yes.
Even though Chazal say that haroidef achar kavod is not painted positively.
Yes.
So explain what you mean when you say that run after the right kavod, and why kavod is perhaps the most important thing to give to a person.
So you just have to understand what kavod is. You can't chase real kavod. So let me explain. I can go on for a long time on this topic. But kavod means kavod that I'm talking about means to feel good about yourself. If I catch somebody in a random yeshiva learning Olam Hamiddos, there's no greater kavod than that. I don't have to go to him and say, you know who wrote that sefer? That's kavod. But if someone gives you a bracha under the chuppah, and everyone stands up for you, and there happens to be 1,000 people at the wedding, this is something that my Rebbe taught us this idea. He said, they're not giving you kavod because you're so important. They're not giving me kavod because of anything I've done. They're giving me kavod because they called me up as rabbi. If I was a conservative rabbi and nobody knew about it, they would also stand up. If I was a Russia, hopefully I'm not, they'd also stand up. So that kavod, while I feel good, but I don't think about it the next minute after the wedding or even after the chuppah. Ooh, I'm so chashiv. I got a bracha. I got a kibbut. He's my Talmud. I got a kibbut. I don't get him so much, but I got a kibbut. So when you understand what real kavod is about, you can't chase real kavod. Kavod has to be given to you. Pasuk says, is Alter Nevarek Svar, kavod chachamim minchalo. The kavod of chacham is inherited. You can't buy it. Mm-hmm. So when people are chasing kavod, they just don't understand what kavod is. Why are you chasing that? It's shallow. If you chase it, if I sit up, I'm not coming to the wedding unless I get a bracha. I'm not doing this unless. So don't you feel cheap that you're doing that? So I can't chase real kavod. So run after right kavod. That title basically means chase right kavod. What is right kavod? Right kavod is feeling good about yourself for yourself. Real kavod is understanding your value as a person, your chashivas. Real kavod is about giving kavod to other people. So that's the right kavod, and that's the only kavod. And then it helps me out in my own life. I like kavod. I like when people. This is a big kavod being here for this interview, but I know I can't chase it. So sometimes let's say I have an opportunity to get kavod. Someone asks me to get a bracha by a chasa, and I'll tell him, not always, but sometimes I'll tell the person, look, if you have other people, don't worry about me. But I know that this is great, because if he doesn't give me the bracha, Hashem's going to give me something better later. Chazal say anyone who runs away from kavod chases after him. It's not exactly Chazal, kol berech min agdula. Mesil Sharm uses the language of kavod chases after you. So when I was a youngster, Baruch Hashem, I was so proud of myself. I had the following question. If kavod's bad, so why are you being told that kavod's going to go after you? You're going to be punished for doing it? I thought that kasha when I was maybe 19, 20 years old. I was so excited. And I thought, and I realized, no, we need kavod. It gives a person life. It gives a person chizuk to keep going. If people don't get kavod, they fall apart. But Chazal are telling us, your job is not to chase it. Hashem says, you do your best to stay away. I'll give you the kavod you need. I'll give you real kavod. There's real kavod. There's real kavod like putting out a sefer. I'm very blessed. You can have kavod from nachas from your children. You can't buy this kavod. This is kavod that Hashem will give you.
So how do you apply that in dealing with Bachram? You're a mashgiach. We should mention mashgiach in a yeshiva Heichal HaTorah of Teaneck, and we were actually joined. A few of your Talmidim were nice enough to join us here in the bleachers watching the interview. So thank you for coming out here. It's not every day that we have fans in the seats, so to speak.
Hershey, Josh Packer, we'll give them a shout out.
So thank you for joining us. But you have a colossal impact on the lives of these boys. We've heard from Talmidim of yours that you have a koyach to connect to them in a very, very unique way that maybe other influences, other Rabbeim over the years haven't had. What role does teaching kavod to them play in that connection?
Yeah, before you talk about teaching kavod, which what you're asking is I respect the Bachram. I don't know if I'm the best connector. I have to work on that. But I value each Bachar. I value each student. And if you value them, they feel that you respect them, and then they believe in themselves. The same way they see you believe in them, they believe in themselves. And just, to speak a little bit about it, what gets in the way of machanchim or parents, I hate to show off, but I also wrote a parenting book, which I will have to recommend, The Heart of Parenting. Okay. The kavod, what gets in the way is when you see a child is struggling. So a kid is not learning, a kid's making trouble in class, and then you lose kavod for him. And the kids sense, I always tell parents all the time, it's not what you tell your child, it's what you're feeling. They can sense if you're looking down at them. Parents tell me, I work with parents on the side, and parents tell me, but I never say anything bad, I never insult, I never criticize him, I always tell him I love him. But what are you thinking? What are you feeling? If it's okay, there's only one. I want to share with you one word that just came to me last week, which I enjoy. By the Paraduma, we know it's a chok, Parshas Chukas, but Paraduma is a chok because the water that makes the person tar, the mechatas, the mixture of the ashes of water that makes a person tar, also makes the people carrying it, involved in it, tameh. So the question is, how could it be the mechatas that makes the person tar could also make the person tameh? It's not fair. But maybe we should rephrase the question. How could it be the mechatas that can make the person bringing there first, tameh, that mechatas can make the person tar? Wow. You can apply this in many different ways, but I apply it with the way we look at other people. Person struggling during Seder to learn. And you're looking at him, how could it be that he wastes so much time? Maybe you should think the other way. It's hard for him to come to yeshiva. It's hard for him to sit. And he still comes every day. When you look at the kid, and especially when you're dealing with younger children, teenagers, they're young. You're blaming them? It's like their fault. They're lazy. Come on. They're set. That's what they're handed. There's so much good there. If you see the good, then they'll feel it, and good things happen. You have to learn to develop an ayin tov, and ayin tov just means, there's something that Kalish says over a beautiful var, ayin tov just means a good eye. It means a good eye. You see the truth. You're not fooling yourself. You see the truth. The truth is there's a good boy. There's so much goodness there.
Wouldn't you say that most disappointment comes from expectations? So we expect something, and because whatever it is doesn't materialize, that's what gets us down. So in chinuch as well, and dealing with talmidim and children, when we expect a certain result and we don't see that result that we kind of painted a picture of what we want to see, then that automatically will lead to disappointment. Whereas, like you're saying, if you spin it around and you look at it positively at what the child is contributing or what they're doing despite whatever challenges they might have, so then that automatically will help us view their accomplishments in a whole different way.
You touched a raw nerve. The word expectations, I remember. Expectations is a very bad word, especially on other people. I expect you to be getting up for davening. I expect you to be learning. I expect you. I don't know if everyone's going to understand what I'm saying here. I don't have enough time to explain, but who are you? Yes, you're the parent. You brought them into the world. What does it mean you expect on somebody else? They don't owe it, even parents, even my own children. I don't want them davening or learning because it's my expectations. They're here for Hashem.
You're touching on a very interesting point, because I think most parents and even educators view it as a quid pro quo. We're providing X, Y, and Z to you. We're giving you a house, shelter, food, and we're expecting a certain level of performance. And in a school also, we're providing an environment of education for you. We expect you to toe the line in a quid pro quo type of arrangement. And you're saying,
well, let me say it like this. They didn't sign up for this. They didn't sign up to be born to you. They didn't sign up to your house. They didn't even sign up for Torah, Baruch Hashem, their Zocha to be a Yid and learn Torah. They didn't sign up for it. We have to understand that sometimes a parent that works so hard to get to where they got to, or the Rebbe works so hard to prepare the shiur, at least you should listen. That was your decision. I just want to say the main idea of parenting is I don't measure my parenting success. Personally, for my own children, I'm very proud of them. I don't measure success by how good your kids are. There's some people that are terrible parents in terms of their skills, and they have wonderful children. Don't measure your parenting skills by what type of child you have. Hashem gives, everyone has bechira, and many children that today are struggling one day I just got an email from a father, a beautiful email. He's an amazing person. Because from years ago, he remembers that when his son was in Waterbury, I would give them chizuk. He's a wonderful mechanech. I would give him chizuk. He struggled with his own kid. And I said, one day, who knows, this child that's struggling, was really struggling, he may give you more nachas than all your other children. And he has wonderful children. And he just sent me an email, Mamish, this morning. He's like, he actually tried calling me. He's like, thank you so much. You don't know how much chizuk you gave me during that process. And now it's true. My son is going to the mir. He's such a ben Torah. Just you have to believe in them, but also don't expect. You have to just put in, your job is to give them the love. Your job is to give them the respect. That's your job. You have to answer the question after 120. Did I give my child everything I could have? And then the rest is up to them. I will tell you 99.9. There are exceptions, there are outside things, etc. Plenty of stories like that. I don't blame parents. That's why I don't assume because a kid's struggling, it's the parent's fault. But you have to ask yourself as a parent, am I giving my child everything I can? The rest is up to them, and a lot of parents don't realize that point. I'm giving, the rest is up to them. Not forcing, not his success is my success. I don't take success, I don't take credit by Talmidim.
I think the world views it that way. Something you just said, his success is my success. The world very much views people as either successful or not by how their children are performing, and I think by default that's why people view themselves that way, kind of reflects on themselves if their children are not doing well. And the same as mechanchim. Some mechanchim want to teach elite students because if their students are doing well, then that reflects positively on them. Whereas if you're working with those who struggle, then some people mistakenly believe that somehow reflects on their level of success. What do you say about that?
Doesn't reflect. I never understood if a yeshiva would say, we're the best yeshiva. You're the best yeshiva because you take in the best 8th graders going into 9th grade who are already learning. You're going to have to answer after 120, and I'm not saying anyone's not doing a good job, but the point is, they're going to have to answer after 120, did you take these 9th graders who are excited to learn, and did you make them the gedolim, the people they could have became? Hashem is going to measure us by what we did, the effort that we put in, and what we gave them. Anyone can take in the goody-goodies. I happen to have been one of them, by the way. But anyone can take in the goody-goodies and be successful with them. And they're not really successful because they could be doing much, much more. So you have to,
Now,
also just add one more point, I'm
Sure.
sorry, is
Sure.
also don't measure success by a very narrow window. Not every kid can sit and learn, especially when they're 10, 13, 15, 16. People have ADHD, people have a hard time sitting, people have challenges. But not everyone's success is measured by learning, first of all, at a certain age. And also some people's success can be measured by other things. And how many people who weren't successful in yeshiva today are supporting yeshivas. And I always laugh, like, this bacher that you're being tough on and you're criticizing him, one day you're going to come to him and ask him for money. I don't know if he should give you. But, you have to be a little open-minded as to what success means. You also have to be open-minded that bacher is different than you. And, a lot of Rebbeim I see, they just don't understand that bacher is not you.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're talking about showering them with love and really giving them their space, we'll call it. But how does a parent or a Rebbe or a Mechanech know when to draw the line? How do you know when to crack down? Or it's kind of a hard balance.
It's a great question. It's a great question. By nature, nurture, I'm more of a softer parent, a softer personality. But, so I'm not going to tell parents. I wrote my parenting book. Actually, funny story, I sent it to ArtScroll, the parenting book, and they said, it's amazing, where's the rest? Because it's a short book, but there's a lot in there. But the main thing to me about parenting is developing the relationship. And I think different parents can go with different ways. You could be a little bit tougher, a little bit softer. The main thing is you're close with your child. And the second thing I want to point out, which is very nogea to chinuch in the schools as well, how you're going to deliver the message. So I'll just give you an example I like to give. A kid comes into yeshiva needs a haircut. So you could tell the kid, you need a haircut. You can do it in front of other kids, which is unforgivable, really. It's a isser to embarrass somebody in public. You can call the kid to office, you're at a higher level, and you could say, you need to get a haircut. A kid told me that his menal, again, this is exception, but menal called him to office and he said, if you don't come back with a haircut by Monday, don't come back. And the kid told me, he said, I decided not to go back to yeshiva. He was doing okay. He said, I didn't go back to yeshiva because I wasn't taking that. If the menal, in general, this is a very important rule for parents, you can discipline, but there's never an excuse to do it without respect. You can call the kid into office and say, if you were me, you'd probably say, I love you here, it's cool, but it's a yeshiva, people judge us, other kids are going to learn. Be honest, that's another message for chinuch. Don't tell them fake reasons because you don't think it's strong enough. Kids like the truth. This is the truth, it doesn't look good, people will judge us, I'm sorry. Otherwise, if you were the only guy in the yeshiva, you'd keep your hair. I need a favor. Do me a favor. I don't want to fight with you. Please get a haircut. Most kids are going to listen to you. And even our own children. Discipline with respect. I don't see ever an excuse not to treat a kid with respect. You can be tough with respect. How tough you should be, I think every situation is different. Every parent's different. I don't have a rule on it. But I have a rule. Love your kid. Get to know them. Get to be close with them. Have a good relationship with your kid. And really try hard with respect. Of course, you have to work on your middos if you're an angry person. And you talk to your kids when you're angry, and you talk to your talmidim when you're angry, it's not going to work because you're not going to talk with respect. Just the fact you're angry already, you try talking to your wife, spouse when you're angry, even if you say it nicely, it doesn't go well.
Now, this method of chinuch that you espouse, who would you say you see out there is applying it? Who's your hero or role model in doing this exact thing?
I would say it's what I learned in Waterbury under Ray Kaufman and Rabbi Kalish. What they're doing in Waterbury. I was a Rebbe in Waterbury in the high school for 10 years. I was in the Beis Medrash for 10 years before that. But I learned, I think by nature I was always had somewhat of an ayin tov, I would say, and seeing the good. And I just saw what happens. I see how kids who are hurt in other places. I see how kids are hurt in their homes. I see it, and I've worked with a lot of parents, and I see the results of good parenting and nebuch, bad parenting. And I want to say that even if your kid is doing great, if you're not following these lines of having a relationship and treating with love and treating with respect, there's probably a lot of pain in that child. Whether we'll ever see it or we'll not ever see it, what's the difference? It's certainly affecting him. Today, to be a good father, to be a good husband, we have to raise healthy children. So don't just be satisfied, well, my kid's behaving in yeshiva. He's scared of me, and that's why he's behaving. It's working well. You know what? Life is not 0 to 18, 0 to 21, or 0 to 30, because unfortunately we've seen stories of people falling apart in their 30s. It's a long life. And we should never get caught up in today and now. There's so much involved here.
Now, there are youngsters who struggle for the reasons you mentioned, where maybe they weren't receptive to the tough love. But then you have others, and I know you've encountered them, youngsters, teenagers, who just don't have an interest. And you can't really pinpoint the reason, but they're just not connecting to Yiddishkeit. They don't have an appreciation. They might have very wonderful parents, fabulous rabbeim, and just they're not connecting. What message do you give to those who are educating and raising children like that? How do you turn them on to Yiddishkeit? How do they create a connection to the Rebbeinu Shalom that they just seem not to have an interest in?
I think again, the patience is a huge factor. Sometimes a lot of kids, maybe are not ready to buckle down. For whatever reasons, whether they can't sit still, whether they just can't get, whatever reasons, they're not ready to sit down until 18. Patience. So many kids have been killed before they had the chance because they've been given negative message. You're not learning, you're doing this, you're not doing that. If we see kids positively, I assume you want to do good. Another part I like to say is parents will ask the child, I don't understand why you're doing this. I can't understand why you're doing it. A Rebbe says, can't understand why you're not learning. I can't understand is a rhetorical question. How about, I want to understand. Why is it that it's hard for you to learn? Another thing I like to say is that a lot of kids have questions. And, a kid told me that he asked his Rebbe once why women cannot wear pants, and the Rebbe threw him out of the classroom. The kid meant the question. Sometimes kids ask questions that they're just asking
to be provocative.
They're just provocative. They're just asking because they're looking for an excuse to do whatever they want. This is very important. Kids that are chas v'shalom, drugs and other things, they're not doing it because they're happy and they have such a bal, and they're balei taiva. It's stupidity. They're just in pain and they've been hurt, and this is a diversion, a distraction for them. People want to live meaningful lives. They do. If you understand that and assume it, you'll see a lot of answers, and you'll ask. You'll be curious. I'll ask the kid. I want to understand. But a lot of these kids did not always have rebbeim that, first of all, you have 25, 30 kids in your class. Maybe they didn't get the time they needed. They need more time. A lot of kids, don't belong. I was just told someone recently, look, in the old days, kids went to work at 10. Is the school system perfect for everybody? Not necessarily. So we have to keep these things in mind. Not everyone was geared to go to school the way it is. So you have to, I wish that hopefully the specialist gets out. We have to open more yeshivas that are more accommodating. Everyone wants to be the Aleph yeshiva, and nobody wants to open up a yeshiva. First of all, you can be an Aleph kid brains, but you can't sit still. Right. People don't realize that. You can have a Beis Gimel kid who could sit and learn, but can't learn as fast. But we give a message, unfortunately, in some places that if you're weaker in learning, like chas v'shalom,
you're second rate.
You're second rate, so that kid, first of all, loses inspiration very often, too early. People need to open up yeshivas that are accommodating. Don't make the yeshiva what you want success to be. Focus on the kids you have, Some yeshivas always throwing kids out. Maybe you have to think about, maybe I need to do something different rather than get rid of the kids. And are you prepared to do something different? Same thing with parenting. It's not about what you want your kid to be. It's about what my kid needs.
It's an amazing message, a vital message. I think more people need to hear that. Now, in your newest sefer, going back to Olam Ha'avodah, talk about the content of the sefer. What was the focus in writing it? It's very different than Olam Hamiddos. Talk about what the goal is.
So the truth is, you go to Olam Ha'avodah, we're going to a whole different world, a take two here. And I'm going to be, it sounds strange, but I believe in being honest. So this is really the story. I know Shaykh is so much to writing a sefer like Olam Ha'avodah at all. Those that have learned it, we'll learn it, we'll understand it's a hecher sefer.
Right.
What happened was, I don't know exactly the details. There was a chashav, a talmid of mine. Today's younger man in Eretz Yisrael, Avi Jaffe, chashav younger man. So he would get me. I used to pick him up from the dorm very early in the morning. He's a big tzaddik. If I was running a little late, he would just walk, even though it was a 10-minute walk uphill. So I started going with him early in the mornings, and one day I just picked up a Derech Hashem with Rabbi Kaplan's translation, and I pretty much read the English. Okay, not so smart. I read the English, and I fell in love with it. And it's not the first time I opened Derech Hashem, here and there. I don't know what happened. It's really a unusual story. I just fell in love with it. I learned it about 2-3 times over the next few months, and I just kind of jumped. I went to different places, which I'm not there today. In fact, I would not put out the sefer today just because I'm embarrassed, even if I had the information. But when I wrote it, I meant it. And similar to Olam Hamiddos, I didn't sit down to write the sefer. It did happen very fast. I was on a higher plateau for about a year, or a year and change, and some point, 6 months in, all the material in Olam Ha'avodah came to me during that tkufa. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like Olam Hamiddos, which was 10 years of work. It all just came to me, because the Derech Hashem talks about that everything in Yiddishkeit is about getting close to Hashem. So then I started thinking, 1 second, and this is something which I think the Sefer is very helpful for. When you ask somebody, what's the main thing about it, main part of Yiddishkeit, of Hashem? Learning Torah. Well, what about Midos? Oh, it's also important. What about Tefillah? It's also important. So I started thinking, how does it come together? So, and then Hashem just flooded me over the next few months with explanations, understanding, and the Sefer is just a gift from Hashem. It sounds arrogant, but I don't know, but it's just a gift from Hashem.
But to summarize, you would say it's more about how to cultivate and nurture our relationship with...
So to summarize is first of all explanation that the goal is closest to Hashem. One of the examples I use is you're running from the bathroom to go to the Beis Medrash as you're mumbling Asher Yatzar. It's besides the fact it's not the way to make a bracha, and I'm talking to myself too, but there's also a misunderstanding of why you're running to the Beis Medrash. You run to the Beis Medrash to connect to Hashem, and as you're mumbling to Hashem, to get there. So really, the first section is all about the goal of getting close to Hashem with a lot of nice ideas. And then I go through different sections, Torah first, but how each different area gets you close to Hashem, and more different ideas in each section, like what Tefillah is about. I even have a section in Olam Ha'avodah called Olam Hamiddos, and I talk about how Midos affects our relationship to Hashem.
Your original Olam Hamiddos, we could say, is more Beid Adam L'Chaveroi.
Exactly.
This is Olam Hamiddos as relates to our relationship with the Rebbeinu
Shalom. It'll be, I'm not
Something
comparing
like
any way, but it'll be like Mesil Sham Orchas Sadikim. It's two different focuses.
Right. Well, the message in this Sefer and all your Svarim seem to resonate with people. It's something you're talking to us, not over our heads. I think that seems to be something that you've tapped into. Is that something that you do cognitively on purpose? Is it just the way your Musar has evolved? What would you say?
I think it's because I'm not so smart, and I don't understand. Like when I write,
I should say your Talmidim told me that you're very humble. So I don't know if this is just sheer humility.
I'm not humble either, but so many things I write about. Olam Ha'avodah, I said, is a gift. It's not crazy concepts, but it's a gift. But a lot of what I talk about in general is just common sense. Mm-hmm. And I've never had anyone he could argue with me. When you tell the kid to do something, tell it to him nicely. There are things you don't argue with. It's just common sense.
Seichel.
So maybe Hashem gave me a certain yashras, hopefully, that I have not corrupted too much. Certain yashras of seeing things in a straight way.
But common sense is not so common.
Right.
So that's what we need someone like you to enlighten us, to help us out.
Halavai should be zocha. But,
well, we definitely appreciate that message. We thank you for coming out from Waterbury, from Teaneck to here for this conversation. Mazel tov on the release of this new Sefer Olam Ha'avodah. Very exciting achievement for you. And Mitzvah Hashem, you'll be Messiah and many other Svarim. Keep enlightening us. Any closing message that you have for us as we conclude the conversation?
I would say just be honest, just be real, be willing to look at yourself, understand yourself. Also, like we spoke about, people need kavod. And people are afraid, I think, to look at themselves because, oh, I have this shortcoming, I have that shortcoming. If we would just, it's okay. It's okay to have shortcomings. I have more than anyone else. It's fine. The question we have to ask ourselves is, am I trying to get there? Am I trying to work on myself? So really, Olam Hamiddos is working on your middos between you and yourself. It's been Adam l'chaveiro, but it's really been Adam l'Atzmo, that you're working on yourself. So many people are good outside the house, but maybe not as good, unfortunately, inside the house. To be a real person. And the same thing comes to the Olam Ha'avodah. And again, I have to work on myself. To be real, to work on our davening. Unfortunately, today, there's a lot about PR. And we have to remember what PR sometimes we need to do. But we don't want to live our life as one big PR. We want to be real. When no one else is around, when no one else sees, to me and myself, what am I up to? What am I working on? What do I want to become?
Well, thank you for those messages. And Eretz Hashem, we should all be zeicha to be real, to live real, and to personify these eternal messages, these important messages that you've taught us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.